Formula One is absolutely blowing up right now. But behind all that glamour and speed, what really makes it one of the most demanding, one of the most dangerous sports on the entire planet? Well, that's what we're here to do. Let's break down just how extreme F1 really is.
Okay, let's just start with the human body. Forget the car for a second. In just one race, a driver can lose up to 4 kilograms. That's almost 9 pounds just from sweat. Think about that. That is an insane feat of endurance, and we haven't even touched the machine yet.
So while they're literally sweating buckets, their bodies are also being absolutely crushed by G-force. We're talking up to 6 Gs in a high-speed corner. Now, what does that even mean? It's 6 times their own body weight pressing down on them. So to put that into perspective for you, your head, right? Normally it weighs about 5 kilos. Under 6 Gs, it suddenly feels like it weighs 30 kilos. I mean, just imagine trying to hold that up while flying around a corner.
And all of this really gets to our first big point, the human element. I mean, before we can even talk about the incredible machine, you have to appreciate the punishing, just brutal physical toll it takes on the driver. It really is a battle of endurance, pushed to its absolute limit. So you might be asking, why that insane weight loss? Well, inside that cockpit, temperatures can hit 45 degrees Celsius and can even soar up to a blistering 60 degrees. Yeah, 60. It's that combo of insane heat and humidity that makes races like Singapore, famously tough. It's just an absolute torture test for these athletes.
Okay, so we've talked about the human. Now let's get to the machine. Because in Formula One, winning, it's not just about the driver, not by a long shot. It's just as much about the technology. This sport is, at its core, a relentless, non-stop engineering arms race to build the fastest car on the planet.
And you know what's so cool about this crazy arms race? It actually benefits you and me. So many technologies that are just common in our cars today were born in Formula One. I'm talking about things like carbon fiber. McLaren used it way back in 1981 to build a lighter, more efficient car. Hybrid powertrains? Yep. Even the buttons on your steering wheel. All of it was tested and perfected on the track first. All right, so just how fast are we really talking here? The official F1 race speed record is a completely mind-boggling 372.5 kilometers per hour. To give you some context, that is way, way faster than the takeoff speed of a jumbo jet, a Boeing 747.
And this is where it gets absolutely wild. At those kinds of speeds, an F1 car is actually generating enough aerodynamic lift that, well, if it had wings like a plane, it would literally take off and fly. The laws of physics are actively trying to launch this car off the ground.
So, how in the world do they stay on the track? Well, it all comes down to this one incredible concept, downforce. You see the wings on the car? They're shaped just like an airplane's, but they're flipped upside down. This creates something called negative lift, which basically sucks the car onto the asphalt with a force that's equal to 5 times its own weight. And that right there is what gives them the insane grip to take corners at speeds that should be impossible. But of course, with that incredible speed has always come incredible danger. You really can't understand F1 without looking at its high-stakes history. It's always been this constant battle, this push and pull, between smashing the limits and confronting the ultimate risk.
And this is a really sobering number. Since the sport began, 52 drivers have died in Formula One. Of course, the most famous tragedy was the death of the legendary 3-time champion Ayrton Senna back in 1994, a moment that just sent shockwaves through the entire world, not just the sport.
The inherent danger of that era is perfectly captured in the unbelievable story of Jochen Rindt. So in 1970, he died during a race weekend, but because drivers get points all season long and no one else could catch up to his total, he remains the only champion in history to be awarded the title posthumously, after he had already passed away. Just incredible. Now, these kinds of tragedies, they forced a radical shift in the whole philosophy of F1. Safety suddenly became this data-driven, relentless pursuit of innovation. And this led to everything from carbon fiber helmets that are designed to dissipate impact, to multi-layered fireproof suits, and even biometric gloves that beam a driver's vital signs directly to the medical team during a crash. But maybe the single most groundbreaking innovation came just a few years ago, in 2018, with the Halo. Yeah, that titanium bar that sits right above the driver's head. It was super controversial at first. A lot of people just thought it was ugly. But listen to this. That one piece of equipment is strong enough to support the weight of 2 African elephants. And there is absolutely no doubt it has saved multiple lives since it was introduced. Okay, but all of this incredible engineering, all of this life-saving safety, well, it comes at a cost, a huge cost. So let's talk about the money, because to make an F1 team work, you need a massive, super complex financial ecosystem. This is a sport where winning is literally fueled by billion-dollar investments.
And just like any other major sport, the pay scale is staggering. Just look at the massive difference on display here. A top driver like Max Verstappen, he can pull in an estimated $60 million a year. Now compare that to a driver in a smaller team like Mick Schumacher was, at around $1 million. And here's the real kicker. Those massive salaries, they don't even count towards the team's budget cap.
So you'd think these teams are just printing money, right? Well, not exactly. Take a look at Toro Rosso back in 2018. They spent over $181 million to make a profit of just $1.8 million. For a company that size, that's basically a rounding error. So what's the point? Well, the real return on investment isn't about profit. It's about global publicity and, maybe even more importantly, those technological breakthroughs that can then transfer back to the road cars that you and I drive.
Now, to fight back against this idea that the richest team always wins, the governing body, the FIA, brought in a budget cap. For 2023, it was set at $135 million, and this is a very direct attempt to level the playing field, to try and make sure that success is about more than just having the deepest pockets.
But, in the modern era, F1 is facing some brand new challenges. A big one is the criticism over its environmental impact, and this has led to the rise of an all-electric rival and a huge question mark over the future of the sport itself.
And that rival is Formula E. It's the official all-electric racing series, and its purpose is kind of twofold. One, it's a super important testing ground for electric vehicle tech. And two, it's meant to be a more sustainable answer to those tough environmental questions that motorsport is facing today.
So where is all this headed? Well, the roadmap seems to be pointing towards an inevitable merger. See, the FIA's rights for Formula E are set to end in 2039, and a lot of people in the sport think it's really only a matter of time before the two series just combine. The end goal? To create one single all-electric global championship that has the massive brand power of F1, but with the sustainable tech of Formula E.
Which of course leaves us with one final and, I think, fascinating question. So much of the soul of Formula One is tied to the roar of the engines, right? That visceral speed, that raw physical extremity we've been talking about. So, as the sport speeds towards a cleaner, quieter, all-electric future, can it ever truly capture that same heart-pounding thrill that has kept fans hooked for over 70 years? It's a big question.